Hello, my name is Faris Hassaniye. I'm a multi-cloud architect at Dell Technologies. Cloud computing is becoming increasingly important as it's recognizable in the growing market of services in the IT infrastructure, development platforms, and software sectors. A basic question facing most IT shops today is whether to use their own data centers, a public cloud provider, colocation facilities, or all of the above. The goal of this video is to help companies analyze the economic advantages and disadvantages of cloud computing versus in-house IT and to draw conclusions about the appropriate mix of in-house systems and cloud resources. There is a widely held belief that public cloud providers must offer lower unit prices than any do-it-yourself approach could achieve, but the truth is more complicated. A number of IT organizations have achieved documented savings by moving out of a public cloud. Instagram, for example, began to utilize a public cloud when its managed service provider couldn't provision servers quickly enough. However, after its acquisition, Facebook enjoyed a 4-time savings by migrating Instagram applications to Facebook internal IT organizations. In some cases, a cloud provider might offer services or resources at a lower unit price than the unit cost a given company can provide internally. However, large enterprises might have sufficient scale, IT infrastructure competence, and workload diversity to achieve cost structures similar to those of leading cloud providers and be further advantaged because the correct comparison isn't between a cloud provider cost and that of an enterprise, but between a cloud provider's price and the cost of an enterprise to do it itself. Dedicated resources cost money whether you use them or not, but pay-per-use cloud services only cost money when you use them. By analogy, an expensive rental car might still save you money if you only need it for a few days. The key insight is that the car might cost a lot when you rent it, but it costs you nothing when you don't. To make this clear, suppose a married couple where one member needs a car every day to go to work, but the other only needs transport on Saturdays to shop for the week. Moreover, suppose that buying a car costs $300 per month, but renting a car costs $50 per day. A rental car is then 5 times as expensive as a dedicated solution. A fully dedicated solution would cost $140 per week since 2 cars would be needed for 7 days each week. A pure cloud solution, only renting cars, would cost $400 per week. But a hybrid solution is cost optimal at a total cost of $120 per week, $70 for the one dedicated car, and $50 for the one rental car used only 1 day per week. To understand relative cost, you also can't just look at unit costs, but must also consider utilization. Operating, say, at 33% utilization means that there are 2 unused resources for every one that is used. It's like buying 2 additional apples at the fruit stand for every one that you actually eat. In the case of the public cloud, this is factored into the offered price. In the case of dedicated resources, low utilization can be caused by poor resource management, but it can also be a result of spiky workloads in the presence of fixed capacity. Having the right quantity to match the aggregate demand has clear economic benefits. Too many resources and there is a loss with the cost of the capital deployed. Too few and the application will perform slowly or not at all, impacting key metrics such as revenue, labor productivity, or time to market. However, the value of on-demand resources changes based on the nature of the demand. If demand is completely flat, there is no real value to speedy provisioning and the cloud option. However, if demand is growing exponentially, there is a penalty associated with any fixed provisioning interval. Consequently, in such growth options, which are typical for startups, a public cloud strategy makes sense. A traditional cloud TCO study will consider the costs related to server, storage, networks, and facilities. However, there are additional relevant costs to factor in. There are search costs to find the right provider. There might be costs for migrating applications to cloud architecture, technology costs such as for network infrastructure or management tools, people costs such as for organization to audit service provider SLAs, soft costs such as loss of productivity over potential job security concerns, and there could be additional migration and integration scenarios like migration from cloud back to data center, from cloud to cloud, and applications or infrastructures spanning 2 or more clouds. Providers would like to discourage customers from migration, but customers would like flexibility to avoid lock-in and help keep the market competitive. Another important factor that is usually missing from the cloud business case is the data transfer cost that might more than outweigh the slight savings in compute and maybe storage that a public cloud might achieve. Real-world architecture creates a mix of data transfer cost. For example, a movie streaming service might use 2 availability zones within a region, 2 regions within a given geo for availability, and various load balancers and IP addresses. It might back up the data to a competing cloud provider to protect against provider-wide outages. Depending on the provider, the service might incur charges at any or all of these points. This table shows what AWS charges to transfer a terabyte of data per month. If we go back to our car example, the math changes if the less traveled spouse needs to take a $15 cab ride from home to the rental car location and another one back. Then the dedicated solution would cost less at $140 per week compared to the hybrid solution at $150 a week. In addition, indirectly quantifiable factors and intangible costs should be considered in the TCO study. These include, for example, operational and strategic flexibility, time advantages, improving business process continuity, and employee productivity. In particular, the strategic flexibility is to be taken under the intangible benefit effects, since the results aren't measurable in monetary terms and often come to light in the long term. In addition to the cost, criteria for technical and legal security of IT resources should be included in the analysis. This is related, for example, to companies putting their data in the cloud and thus in the hands of an outside vendor. In addition to the fear of the loss of control over corporate data, data security, the separation of processes on shared virtualization resources, data protections, and deficiencies in transparency regarding provider-user relationships play a key role in the selection and evaluation of cloud services. When we look at what organizations typically do, we find a pattern of overbuying. On the public cloud side, developers are notorious for spinning things up. They can do that very quickly with a credit card, but what we find when we talk to cloud architects and operation leads is that they don't ever spin them down, and therefore customers have tremendous waste in their bill. This is an example of a Gartner client who decided to move to the public cloud, but they didn't know where to get started. They said they're going to start small and learn as they go. They did a proof of concept and their monthly budget was $20,000. As you can see, from month 1 till month 6, their bill was $20,000. Everything was perfect. And then month 7 bill showed up and it was $160,000. What happened next is that the financial team came in and asked about what they are doing in the public cloud. The answer was, we don't know. So the finance team asked them to shut it down, and they couldn't. because they didn't know if it was related to a production environment or to a hobbyist development. This case is very common across public cloud customers, and this is due to the nature of the public cloud. So I have a credit card, I can start spinning up instances in a matter of minutes, and there is no one to control the spending. This is the actual bill that arrived for this client, and as you can see, every line item is metered, every service that they had used, and you will see, for example, one row at $20,000, which was their budget for the month, and another row at $0. Not only that, this bill was 1,300 rows. I don't think that any customer is willing to spend the resources figuring this out. Today, the industry has moved beyond the simplistic black or white debate of whether to use public cloud services in consolidated hyperscale facilities. Instead, real-world environments typically use a mix of strategy, including legacy environments, private clouds, and public cloud providers at the infrastructure, platform, or software level, and increasingly are utilizing not just centralized facilities, but highly dispersed compute and storage elements. A multi-cloud strategy depends on numerous factors, including mix of workloads, unit cost economics, planning horizon, legacy migration, and cloudification costs. However, for many enterprises, a hybrid of private and public cloud and related options such as colocation and interconnection facilities and the use of multiple clouds are likely to offer the greatest benefits.